As Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Mr. Jordan from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, were you guessing or lying? The day after President Trump is shot, Secret Service spokesman Anthony Guglielmi said, quote, "The assertion that a member of the former president's security team requested additional security resources that the U.S. Secret Service or the Department of Homeland Security rebuffed is absolutely false." The next day, Secretary Mayorkas said, "That is an unequivocally false assertion. We had not received any request for additional security measures that were rebuffed." But 5 days later, the Washington Post said this: "Top officials repeatedly rejected requests from Donald Trump's security detail for more personnel." The next day, the New York Times said this: "Mr. Guglielmi acknowledged that the Secret Service had turned down some requests for additional federal security assets for Mr. Trump's detail." So which is it? Because both statements can't be true. Were you guessing or lying when you said you didn't turn down requests from President Trump's detail?
Neither, sir, and I appreciate the question.
Well, what were you doing? Because those statements don't jive.
So what I can tell you is that for the event in Butler, there were no requests that were denied. As far as requests...
Well, maybe they got tired of asking. Maybe you turned them down so darn much, they said, not worth asking. How many times did you turn them down ahead of that?
All right, guys. Wow. Just wow. What you just watched in that snippet is exactly why I've always said Jim Jordan is one of the few people in Washington who refuses to be played, refuses to be gaslit, and refuses to let bureaucrats dance around the truth. Because let's call it what it is. We just saw the director of the Secret Service sitting there, dodging, weaving, tap dancing around the simplest possible questions, questions that the American people deserve answers to. And Jim Jordan, he didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't back down. He didn't soften his tone to protect feelings. He asked what every normal, thinking person wants to know. Were you guessing, or were you lying? That's the kind of accountability we need, especially when we're talking about the life of the President of the United States who literally just survived an assassination attempt. And the contradictions Jordan pointed out, they're not small. We're talking official statements saying absolutely false, then major newspapers revealing that requests were turned down, then the spokesperson suddenly acknowledging the very thing they denied. That's not a miscommunication. That's a serious trust issue. So yeah, I've got a lot to say about the full clip. And trust me, we're going to break down the entire confrontation in detail in just a moment. But before we roll the full video and get into the main reaction, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and drop a comment telling me if you think the Secret Service director was being evasive or honest. All right, let's get into it. Roll the full video.
As Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Mr. Jordan from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, were you guessing or lying? The day after President Trump is shot, Secret Service spokesman Anthony Guglielmi said, quote, "The assertion that a member of the former president's security team requested additional security resources that the U.S. Secret Service or the Department of Homeland Security rebuffed is absolutely false." The next day, Secretary Mayorkas said, "That is an unequivocally false assertion. We had not received any request for additional security measures that were rebuffed." But 5 days later, the Washington Post said this: "Top officials repeatedly rejected requests from Donald Trump's security detail for more personnel." The next day, the New York Times said this: "Mr. Guglielmi acknowledged that the Secret Service had turned down some requests for additional federal security assets for Mr. Trump's detail." So which is it? Because both statements can't be true. Were you guessing or lying when you said you didn't turn down requests from President Trump's detail?
Neither, sir, and I appreciate the question.
Well, what were you doing? Because those statements don't jive.
So what I can tell you is that for the event in Butler, there were no requests that were denied. As far as requests...
Well, maybe they got tired of asking. Maybe you turned them down so darn much, they said, not worth asking. How many times did you turn them down ahead of that?
I think that it is important to distinguish between what some people may view as a denial of an asset or a request.
Well, is Mr. Guglielmi your spokesperson? He said he acknowledged the Secret Service had turned down some requests. I'm asking how many?
A denial of a request does not equal a vulnerability.
Well, tell me what it is.
There are a number of ways that threats and risks can be mitigated. with a number of different assets, whether that be through personnel, whether that be through technology, or other resources.
Well, tell the committee which it was. They asked for additional help in some form or another. You told them no. How many times did you tell them no, and what did you tell them no to?
Again, I cannot speak to specific incidents, but I can tell you in general terms, the Secret Service is judicious with their resources based on...
What does some requests mean? How many times? Some indicate requests is plural. So more than once they asked for additional help and you turned them down. What did they ask for and how many times did you turn them down? Pretty basic questions.
So again, without having all of the details in front of me, sir, what I can tell you is that there are times...
You didn't get briefed on how many times you turned down the Trump detail when they asked for additional help?
I'm sorry.
You didn't get briefed on that before you came to this hearing, knowing you were going to get asked that question?
What I can tell you is that in generic terms, when details make a request, there are times that there are alternate ways to cover off on that threat or that risk.
But that's not what he said. He said they were denied certain requests, some requests. This is your spokesperson, not me talking. This is the Secret Service talking. And what a change from absolutely false, unequivocally false to, oh, by the way, there were some times where we didn't give them what they wanted. That's a huge change in 5 days. And the fact that you can't answer how many times you did that, that's pretty darn frustrating, not just for me, but for the country.
I hear your frustration.
Let me ask you this. Were any of those requests denied to President Trump's detail after you knew about the Iranian threat?
What I can tell you, again, I don't know the specifics, is that there are times when we can fill a request. It doesn't necessarily have to be with a Secret Service asset or resource. We can fill that request with locally available assets.
You spoke to anyone at the White House since July 13th?
Yes, I have.
Who'd you talk to?
I have briefed the President and the Vice President.
Talked to the First Lady?
No, I have not.
Talked to the White House staff? Anyone in the White House communications?
No, I have not.
Have you talked to the counter sniper who took the shot that took out the bad guy?
Yes, I have.
And can you tell us about that conversation?
I would not want to reveal conversations that I've had with my employees.
But that's exactly the kind of information the American people want to know. American people who pay your salary.
I understand. This is an ongoing investigation, and
Who's all doing the investigating at Secret Service? I know the Inspector General, but is there also an internal investigation in addition to the Inspector General?
We are conducting a mission assurance investigation internally, yes.
You know what it looks like, Director? It looks like you won't answer some pretty basic questions. It looks like you got a 9% raise and you cut corners when it came to protecting one of the most important individuals, most well-known individuals on the planet. A former president, likely the guy who's going to be the next president. Looks like you guys were cutting corners. That's what it looks like to me. Is that true?
I am here today because I want to answer questions, but I also want to be cautious.
You might want to, but you haven't answered, I don't think you've answered one question from the chairman, the ranking member, or me. Well, we got a lot of other people asking. We'll see if your record improves, but right now you haven't answered, I don't think, any questions. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes Ms. Norton from Washington, D.C.
Okay, now that we've all seen the entire exchange, let's talk. Because that was one of the clearest examples of Jim Jordan doing what he does best. Cutting straight through the excuses and demanding accountability. Let me walk you through what stood out to me. 1. Jordan caught a major contradiction. The Secret Service said, absolutely false. Unequivocally false. Then later, oh, actually, yes, some requests were turned down. You don't go from absolutely false to, well, actually, yeah, unless someone is playing word games. Jordan saw that immediately, and he pounced on it. 2. The director refused to answer basic questions. Jordan asked, how many requests were denied? What was denied? Were any denied after knowing about the Iranian threat? Did you speak to the counter-sniper? Did you get briefed before coming to the hearing? Every single one met with the exact same politician-style response. I cannot speak to specifics in general terms without all the details. Come on, you're the director of the Secret Service. The entire nation is watching. A former president was nearly killed. This is not the moment for vague, polished bureaucratic talking points. And Jordan was right to call him out. You haven't answered one question. 3. Jordan exposed a deeper issue, possible corner cutting. This was the strongest moment. It looks like you got a 9% raise and you cut corners protecting one of the most well-known individuals on the planet. That hit hard, because the truth is, it does look like corners were cut. If Trump's team had to repeatedly ask for more resources, if the Secret Service rejected some of those requests, and if the director still can't give a straight answer, then what conclusion are we supposed to draw? Jordan put into words exactly what the public is thinking, but what nobody in leadership wants to admit. For Jordan asked what the American people would ask. No fluff, no political theater, just direct, common-sense questions, and watching the director sidestep every single one. It honestly made Jordan look even stronger because he kept the pressure exactly where it belonged. This wasn't grandstanding. This was oversight, real oversight, the kind Congress is supposed to do. 5. The moment that sealed it. Jordan said, "That's exactly the kind of information the American people want to know." And is right. This isn't some internal bureaucratic detail. It's national security. It's a protection of a former president. It's transparency after a near assassination attempt. Jordan wasn't attacking. He was doing his job, and doing it well. Final thoughts. What we just watched is exactly why people gravitate toward Jim Jordan. He calls out contradictions, demands clarity, and refuses to accept rehearsed, safe, PR-approved non-answers. If the Secret Service director couldn't answer those basic questions today, then something is seriously wrong, and Jordan made sure the entire country saw it.